And how about this? That game one was the fourth longest game one in NHL playoff history. In each of the other games in the top five, the team to win in game one eventually won the series. And here you go. The trend is your friend as the Florida Panthers win it 4-3 and sweep the Hurricanes, the first sweep of this postseason. There had yet to be a series sweep this postseason. Of all the rounds, of all the series, there had been no sweeps until now. Matthew Tkachuk with a couple of goals. Sergei Bobrovsky gives up 3 goals, but stops 36 shots in doing so. And the Panthers move on to the Stanley Cup Final, their first since 1996. Now, I don't want to be Debbie Downer here. In 1996, they got swept by the Avalanche. And here, they're sweeping the Canes to get to the Cup Final. They have had a heck of a season, right? Wild. They were the last team to get in the East, the final wild card spot. They were down 3-1 in the series to the Bruins, and since then, they have gone 11-1. Are you kidding me? And for more, welcoming former NHL winger Alan May, who played 8 seasons in the National Hockey League. And Alan, what a series, what an ending. And I want to start right there with the ending. We got a review from Rod Brindamore, wanted to take a look at the game winner. Was there goalie interference? What did you see?
Not even close. And you knew that Brindamore was going to challenge that because he basically complained about every single penalty call in the series, every goal against, and there was no way that that was interference. I thought it was a great call by the Department of Player Safety or whoever does that. And there's no way. That's not enough. There was no conclusive evidence that Frederik Andersen was stopped from being able to do his job. And this was just a matter of incredible amount of patience and poise by Matthew Tkachuk. It's a beautiful goal. And talk about a team that's timely. With this power play, they won that overtime game with basically the same type of puck movement, forcing the penalty killers to go side to side. And Matthew Tkachuk has been earning his money in these playoffs. This has been absolutely incredible. His performance has only been bested by Sergei Bobrovsky, who has been absolutely incredible. And once again tonight, he did everything he could do to keep his team in the game until they could score the game-winning goal. Absolutely marvelous.
I mean, Matthew Tkachuk, Conn Smythe me. That's what I'm thinking here right now, right? He has the game winner in game one that goes to quadruple overtime, and the game winner here in game 4. 4 goals in the series. Points aplenty for this young man. His father, Keith Tkachuk, in the stands. I love these stories when we see the dads of the sons, which makes us feel old, right? Of course, when we see the sons on the ice, doing big things. What did you see from Matthew Tkachuk throughout this series and really throughout this postseason when they were down 3-1 in the first round against the Bruins?
Well, he's one of those guys that can drive you absolutely crazy, and he's hateable if you are the opposition. There's so many little things he does to get under your skin, but one thing you cannot take away is this guy's a big game hunter. He stands up in the big times. He can play any type of game that there is. He's physical. He's nasty. He can skate up and down the ice and carry the puck, finish plays, and he's got such a great scoring touch. And you know what? He is the best American player left in the playoffs, and you've got to think he's the best American money player there is right now. He's got so much emotion, so much passion, and brings his team into the fight every game. And if the other team isn't willing to fight, he gets them so irritated that they gets them off their game. Everything he does is annoying and awesome at the same time. The goal celebrations, you have to hate him if you're the opposition. The Florida Panthers fans are so lucky, so fortunate right now that this guy plays the game with the amount of passion and dedication to victory that he does. It's been absolutely marvelous to watch. He's won me over because there's so many times I wish I could go back on the ice and take a piece of Matthew Tkachuk, but this guy just keeps playing better and better. And, it's funny. I've heard analysts, I've heard reporters say, well, he hasn't been doing that much. I'm like, what more can he do? This guy's put his entire team on his shoulders, and he's willing them to victory round after round. They beat the first place team in the National Hockey League, I think the second and the fourth now. And next up will probably be the Vegas Golden Knights, who are 5th overall in the National Hockey League. This seems like a team of destiny, and this is the guy that's getting them there to their destination.
Well, yeah, you remember when he scored the game winner in game 1, quadruple overtime. It's 2 in the morning, and he goes, "Let's go, get to bed. Let's go, get to bed." And he's already getting his teammates off the ice. Let's get off the ice. Let's go to sleep. Like, that's the stuff that you talk about legends, and certainly building quite a case here and a resume in these Stanley Cup playoffs. Sergei Bobrovsky was brought here with his great run with Columbus, signed a 7-year, $70 million, making $10 million a season. This is what they expected of him. He gives up 3 goals, but he has been outstanding since he took over for Alex Lyon. What have you seen from Bobrovsky throughout these playoffs?
Well, one of the things I've seen is he's up for the challenge, and his team has been playing a great brand of defensive hockey. They're taking away the shooting lanes. They're taking away the passing lanes. They're blocking shots. They're not allowing passes to shoot off the pass inside the slot, the high danger areas, the low slot where the money is made. And when there is a breakdown in coverage or a slip, a fall, anything there is, Bobrovsky has been there. And he's been mano a mano. He seems like he's stopped everyone. And the most important stat that he has, you mentioned he let in 3 goals, but the most important thing is he's got 11 wins in the playoffs so far. He's looking to get 15, and that'll be stuff that legends are made of. And I go back to, you mentioned that he made $10 million a season. Well, a lot of times you bring in a goaltender, you pay them that much. They put too much pressure on the goaltender to absolutely win every game. But you need players, you need a system to score game-winning goals. So right now they've got the perfect blend of defensemen, all 12, 13, 14 forwards. Everyone that they put in the lineup is so dedicated to the way they're playing right now. And then Bobrovsky's playing with confidence. And when the goaltender is playing with confidence, you cannot help but have confidence being a teammate, the coach, management, the fan base. I love that he's been able to reclaim his career and become a hero throughout these playoffs.
Yeah, certainly has resuscitated his career with the Florida Panthers as they get to the Stanley Cup Final. I want to get to the Carolina Hurricanes, though, right now before we give more praise to Paul Maurice here in the Panthers. Rod Brind'Amour did a hell of a job. This team has so much talent, Alan, but they've got a lot of decisions. There's a lot of free agents here in the offseason for Carolina, and you take a look at the free agents. I mean, you got to look at Freddie Anderson, Antti Ranta, Jordan Staal, Jesper Fast, who scored the equalizer in this one, are all unrestricted free agents. You look at this line, Shane Gostisbehere, Derek Stepan, a veteran. There's a lot of players here. What changes in the offseason does Carolina need to make? What do you think of their offseason outlook, considering they were the ones that should have been playing for a Stanley Cup?
Well, they should have been, but they had some major injuries to Max Pacioretty and Evgeny Svechnikov, 2 snipers, 2 goal scorers, 2 guys that could have got them the GWGs. But when I look at this roster, there's too many players that are over 30 in there. It's a younger man's league. You look at the Florida Panthers, a lot of their snipers are in their 20s. Their defensemen are in their 20s for the most part. So Jordan Staal is a guy that did not look his age in this series. He played strong. He competed the entire time. It's unfortunate he took that penalty that ended up costing them because he would have won that faceoff. That's what he does. But Frederik Andersen and Jordan Staal are 2 guys you definitely bring back. But they've got to get younger. I think with the system that Brind'Amour has, if they identify the right types of players that have that work ethic and speed combination, they will be a team once again. You get a healthy Svechnikov back. I'm not sure where they'll be with Pacioretty, if he'll ever be able to play again. But I expect them to be a formidable team in the future. I like Brind'Amour's system for the most part. But in this series, I felt that they got weaker as every period went on. They play such an energetic and passionate game to start. And as the game goes on, they fatigue. When you look at that 7-period game that started the series, they were fatigued. As it went on, the Panthers had 40 shots at overtime, and they were outshot. They only had 20. I think it was 35-20 in regulation. So there are definitely some changes that Brind'Amour has to make in how he coaches, because his team looked gassed in every game the longer it went. And then you look at the age of the team. You definitely have to get younger. The league has so much youth and so much speed all around it. You've got to start finding and identifying those types of players that can help you win games and win series.
Well, as it turns out, the Carolina Hurricanes were just in the way. They were not going to be resisting anything from the Florida Panthers. I mean, again, Florida was down 3-1 to the record-setting Bruins, Alan. If I had told you at that point they're down 3-1 and they're going to get to the Stanley Cup Final, you would have called me crazy. You would have said, I'm not going on the air with Hakeem Dermish. That guy's nuts. He doesn't know hockey. He doesn't know this. What's he doing? But they have ripped off 11 wins, and now they're in the Stanley Cup Final. What does this say about Paul Maurice in his first season? I know he's a longtime veteran head coach, led the actual Canes to the Cup Final in 2002. They lost to Detroit that year, so he's got experience. But what does it say about the job he's done in season one to get the Panthers to the Cup Final?
Well, I've got a couple things to say about all this. Don't forget that last year they were the President's Cup winning team, the President's Trophy winning team. They were first place. They make a major change. They knew that they needed to be grittier than pretty. And they bring in a kid like Matthew Tkachuk. They traded away, I think Huberdeau was their top point getter. He was about 100-plus points. Mackenzie Weegar was on all cylinders, creating offense on defense. They get rid of those two players. Ekblad sticks up, but Brandon Montour. So you take all of these players, and the system they played this year was better defensively. It was grittier. And the combination of Maurice and Tkachuk going out there and applying the principles of how they play the game. You take that, and remember, I think the first or second week of March, with about a month left to go in the season, they were 14 points out of the wild card spot. They fought, they scratched, they clawed, they got their way into the playoffs, and now they've been on such a great momentum swing for them. And to beat the Boston Bruins, who were first place overall, and then they beat the fourth place overall Toronto Maple Leafs, who everyone thought was going to be, after finally winning a round, they're going to go all the way. They shut them down totally. They cleaned their clocks. And then to do this against the Carolina Hurricanes, a lot of people had Carolina and Vegas to be in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And once again, the Florida Panthers find a way to eliminate a team that they have no business playing against. It reminds me of that LA Kings team years ago that came in the playoffs. They won 6 of their last 9 games. They go in, they win the Stanley Cup after being in 8th place, and they did the same type of thing. They knocked off all the top finishing teams on the way to the Stanley Cup, and eventually the President's Trophy winner, I think, in the Boston Bruins. So you look at the things that they've been able to do. If I'm correct, I'm not sure if it was the Boston Bruins now. There's so many stats running through my head because Florida has done such an incredible job of just sticking to the system. They played a defensively courageous system, blocking shots, making hits, taking hits, tough on the puck, tough on the wall. And probably the best thing and the most underrated thing they've done in these playoffs, anytime they were in trouble, they used airmail to get the puck out of the zone. Their forwards, the wingers on the wall, made sure they just got the puck out into space without icing it every time. And there was no space for the Boston Bruins at the end of their series. There was no space for the Toronto Maple Leafs at any time during their series. And certainly in this series against Carolina, who is a lightning-fast, aggressive hockey team, they didn't look so lightning fast. They didn't look so aggressive because there was always 2 and 3 Panthers in their face. So, Carolina just keeps finding a way. Paul Maurice has a great system right now. They've got a great belief mechanism in their players. And once again, to go far in the playoffs, you need incredible goaltending. And they've had the most consistent goaltending throughout the National Hockey League playoffs so far. And that's why they are in the Stanley Cup Finals.